Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, September 29th. There's about 500 albums coming out this week. I got 14 on the list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you go check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist we put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's about 500 albums coming out this week. I'm only going to talk about 14 on the show today, so if there's something I don't talk about, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to picking up this week. And like always, if you're unable to find these in your local brick and mortar stores, they should all be available online. I'll put links down below for them. The big release for me this week is definitely this Green Day Dookie 30th Anniversary box set. It's one I've had on pre-order since it was first announced. This thing's going to run you about $175 online. I know it was released in 1994, so I know technically it's not its 30th anniversary until next year, but they're releasing this a little bit early. Their third studio album, there's a couple different versions of this. There's a black version, and then there's a colored version also. The colored version, it's brown and like yellowish kind of vinyl, kind of goes along with the title of the album. It's going to run you about $175 online, which I know is a lot, but I think you're getting a lot in this box set, even though I think there's some stuff, the non-music stuff, they probably could have cut out of this box set. But if you go for the CD box set, it's a little bit cheaper. It's going to run you about $50 online. But there's a bunch of stuff in this, man. You got a bunch of like rare stuff. There's a bunch of unreleased stuff on here also. But you get there's 4-track demos, there's cassette demos, there's outtakes. It's a Live at Woodstock show, which was previously released on vinyl for Record Store Day a year or two back, but it's never been available on CD. It's never been available on streaming. And then you've also got a live show from Barcelona in 1994, which I believe that's entirely unreleased also. So, like I said, really some really cool stuff. It's a great album. One of the most iconic punk albums of the 90s. It got me into punk music. It got a lot of people into punk music also. But the non-music stuff is always what gets me with these box sets. I get there's a 36-page booklet, which that's kind of cool. There's a booklet that comes along with the CD box set also. But it's the other stuff outside of that I think they really could have done without in this box set and probably trimmed, at least $20 or $30 off the price. But you got like doggy poop bags in here. There's buttons, there's magnets, there's bumper stickers, there's paper plates, stuff you really don't need in a box set. And I feel like I'm like beating a dead horse here because it seems like every time a box set comes out, I complain about the same stuff. But it's in there, and like I said, with the price, I feel like they could have cut some of that stuff out and saved some money there. So you got that coming out this week. Like I said, I've already got that one on pre-order. Then you've also got Ed Sheeran's new album coming out, Autumn Variations. This is his 7th studio album. There's multiple variants of this going to be available. I know there's a white version that I saw online. I think there's also an indie exclusive version. And I think there's also like one of the big box stores also has a variant. If you go online and look around, you should be able to find it on there. But this is his second album of 2023. Of course, he had Subtract come out earlier this year. This one's also produced by Aaron Dessner, who worked with him on Subtract, worked with a bunch of artists over the last few years. He's produced a bunch of great albums for people across a bunch of different genres. Like I said, I think this is a good album. I'm not the biggest Ed Sheeran fan. I thought Subtract was a pretty good album for what it was, and I kind of expect a lot of the same on this album. I will say this is the interesting thing about this release is this is the first album from Ed Sheeran outside of his collaborations album that came out a few years ago, where the title of the album is not a mathematical sign. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It kind of finally broke away and is doing something a little different title wise. But that one's going. This is a pretty cheap release. It's going to run you about $19 online. When you look at other releases over the last couple of years, I actually think it's a pretty good deal. There's another big anniversary box set that's coming out this week. This is Steve Miller Band, The Joker, first released in 1973. It was their 8th studio album. It's celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and there's 2 different versions that's going to be available. There's a single LP version that's going to run you about $31 online. That's on gold vinyl. And then there's a big 3 LP 1/7-inch Super Deluxe box set. It's going to run you about $180. I will say that this isn't going to be available online from any other like big box stores, so it's not going to be available from Amazon or Pop Market or Merch Bar, wherever you shop online. You can only get this from indie record stores, so I'll make sure I add a link down below to one of my local record stores if you want to grab this box set. There's a ton of stuff in this thing, though. There's 27 unreleased demos. There's studio outtakes. There's live performances. There's 8 never-before-heard songs on this box set. So you're getting a ton of content on top of a great album. The Joker is kind of it's definitely a different album for the Steve Miller Band. It's definitely more like a blues rock, straightforward rock kind of album, where it's a little bit different from their earlier stuff. If you go back earlier in their career, I don't really want to call them like psychedelic rock, but there's definitely some psychedelic elements in a lot of his earlier stuff, or a lot of the band's earlier stuff, where it wasn't really on this album. It's a great album. In my opinion, it's the only Steve Miller Band album to really own. It's the only one I've got on vinyl, at least. But so that's a good one coming out this week. And then you've also got Richard Wright, Wet Dream, coming out. First released in 1978. It's his debut solo album. It's going to run you about $24 online. Not a bad price. It's going to be on deep blue transparent vinyl, cut at 45 RPM, newly remixed by Steve Wilson, which, of course, Steve Wilson is remixed or remastered pretty much everyone's catalog over the last decade or so. This is all written, produced by Richard Wright, and has not been available on vinyl since it was first released back in 1978. So I think it's one that's going to sell pretty good this week. It's a good album. Of course, Richard Wright, known more as the keyboardist, founding member of Pink Floyd, really kind of the heartbeat of that band, did a lot of great stuff over the career of that band. And I will say the album he wasn't on, which is the Final Cut, I think definitely suffered because Richard wasn't on that album. This is a really good one, though. Like I said, very underrated album. If you're a fan of Pink Floyd, I would definitely suggest go back and checking this album out, because, like I said, for $24, I think it's going to be a great one to grab this week. Speaking of Steve Wilson, you get his new album coming out this week. This is the Harmony Codex, his 7th studio album. It's a double LP. It's going to be on orange vinyl. It's going to run you about $48 online. Of course, Steve Wilson is known as the founder, frontman, guitarist for Porcupine Tree, which I've gotten more into their stuff over the last year, so I'm still not a huge fan of their music, but I'm kind of largely unfamiliar with Steve's solo work, so I definitely need to go back through and check out his. I'll stream this album this week. I'll go back through and check out some of his other stuff also. It's so according to Steve, it sounds like a really interesting album, but according to Steve, it's a musically complex album that opens like a musical puzzle box, which I guess I don't even really know what that means. But anyway, I'll stream and check out. It sounds kind of interesting. He's a really kind of fascinating guy. I love all of his remaster stuff and remix stuff that he does for everyone over the years. And then you got Grateful Dead, Wake of the Flood, coming out this week. This was released back in 1973. It's their 6th studio album. It is newly remastered, celebrating its 50th anniversary. It's going to run you about $24 online. I'm not the biggest Grateful Dead fan, but this is a great album. This is, I think, probably my favorite album from the band. I haven't listened to it in years, but I loved it every time I've listened to it. Some really great tracks on there. Eyes of the World and Stellar Blue are both great tracks. And like I said, for $24, it's definitely one I'm going to grab. There's a couple of big albums getting reissued from female artists this week. The first one, this is Elena Miles, her self-titled debut album from 1989. It's going to be on gold vinyl. It's going to run you about $40 online, which I know is a lot, but this is a music on vinyl release. So it's a limited release, limited to only 1,500 copies. It's all numbered. It was a huge album when it came out. Of course, Black Velvet was the big track on it. Reached number 5 on the Billboard charts. I think Black Velvet was number 1 there for a while also. Music on vinyl, they do great releases, though, so I'm pretty sure this is going to be a good one. It's going to sound good. I've never been disappointed by any music on vinyl releases that I've got. So you got that one coming out this week, and then you got Miley Cyrus, Bangerz, also coming out. First released back in 2013. It was her 4th studio album. It's a double LP. It's going to be on black vinyl. It's also going to be on colored vinyl. I know I think there's a indie exclusive version of this. I know that I saw one, a version up on Urban Outfitters also, so there might be an exclusive from there also. So I think there's a couple of different versions of this going to be available on colored vinyl. Of course, this album was huge. This is the album where she really tried to break away from the whole Hannah Montana persona she'd had earlier in her career. Definitely a different kind of album. Definitely trying to definitely trying to blaze her own path with this album. Definitely more of like an R&B vibe on here. We Can't Stop and Wrecking Ball, of course, were like the 2 huge tracks on there. It's for what it is a good album. The debut album from Sleep Token is getting reissued this week. This is Sundowning. First released in 2019. It's a double LP release. It's going to be on Milky Clear vinyl. It's going to run you about $33. In my opinion, this is one of the best debut albums of the last 5 or 6 years, man. Sleep Token is a really underrated band. If you haven't checked them out, formed back in 2016. They're an English band. It's English hard rock. It's kind of got like this Ghost kind of vibe to it with the whole mask persona and all that, but definitely like vocally more poppier. So, like I said, I highly recommend going and streaming their stuff. Their 3rd studio album just came out earlier this year too. I think all 3 of their albums are really good. So that's getting reissued this week. And then you got Steely Dan Asia also being reissued. Released back in 1977 as their sixth studio album. It's going to run you about $26 online. This is what, like the 10,000th time that Asia's been reissued over the last like 10 or 15 years. Actually, I think the UHQR release either just came out earlier this year or is up or is due to get released. I'm not really sure, but I know there's like that's coming out. There's been also multiple other reissues of it. It's a great album. I mean, it's definitely more of an experimental album for Steely Dan. I'm not the biggest Steely Dan fan, but I think they used like over 40 different musicians on this album. It's really kind of an interesting album to kind of go all the way through. Reached number 3 on the Billboard 200 chart here in the U.S. It's the band's most commercially successful album here also. You know, like I said, not a big Steely Dan fan, but this is actually a really good album. There's another big music on vinyl release coming out this week. This is Train Drops to Jupiter, first released in 2001. It was their second studio album. This is going to run you about $40 online. Like I said with the other MOV release, it's kind of the going price for these releases. This one's a little different though. So earlier this year, MOV released a limited version of this album. It's on colored vinyl. There's only 2,000 copies of it. Super limited, like, you know, all the early like limited releases are from MOV. And then normally within like 6 months to a year, they'll do a standard black pressing of it. It's more widely available. That's what you're getting this week for this album. It was a huge album when it came out. I think it was like number 6 on the Billboard charts. The title track was pretty much everywhere when this album first came out. And then you got Yellowcard, Ocean Avenue getting reissued this week, first released in 2003. It was their fourth studio album. It's going to run you about $24 online. So this was released in 2004, but it wasn't until I think it was 2011 and 2014 that it was ever available on vinyl. If you go back and look at those pressings, they're super expensive. You're gonna pay probably $175 to $200 for a pressing. I mean, it's a good album, but it's not worth that kind of money to me. They did reissue it in 2021. I think they did two different colors that they released it on. Those are also super expensive. It's going to run you about $150 to $200 on Discogs for that pressing. So for $24, I'll definitely grab this one. If you're unfamiliar with Yellowcard, they're one of those like early 2000s pop punk kind of bands. Think like Simple Plan. But what kind of separated them was their use of violin on their songs and on their albums. It's definitely kind of set them apart from a lot of those other punk bands of that time period. And then last on the list are two albums that were released back in 1993. The first one, this is 311 Music. It's their debut album. This is an RSD Essentials release, so it's only going to be available from indie record stores. It's not going to be available from any big box stores online. So I'll drop a comment down below for one of my local record stores if you want to grab a copy of this. It's going to be kind of pricey, though. It's a double LP. This is on translucent orange vinyl. It's going to run you about $50 online, though. So it's, like I said, definitely kind of on the pricier end. I like all the 311 stuff that I've listened to. I love their third album. I've got that on vinyl. That was their self-titled album. I liked everything that I've heard them release since then. I'm just really unfamiliar with their first two albums, so I need to go back through and stream that one and check it out. It's newly remastered. It's got 4 bonus tracks on there. Like I said, I'll add it to my list to stream this week. And then the last one on the list, this is The Nightmare Before Christmas. Of course, the soundtrack to the classic 1993 film, composed by the legendary Danny Elfman, which I feel like an idiot because I didn't realize until just recently that he was, maybe I did, I just forgot about it. I completely forgot or didn't know that he was the lead singer of Oingo Boingo back in the early part of the 80s. Once I saw pictures of the band, he's very recognizable, so I felt kind of dumb about it. But this is a great soundtrack. I've loved this movie since it first came out. I've got a couple of copies of it on vinyl already. This picture disc looks really sweet, though. I'll put a picture of it up, so you can check it out. I'll because of the way it looks, and it's only $31. I'll probably grab a copy of it anyway. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to picking up this week. I think there's a bunch of great stuff coming out. Of course, I got that Dookie box set already on pre-order. I'll probably grab that Richard Wright release. I'll probably grab that Grateful Dead release also. Sleep Token, I don't have any of their stuff on vinyl, so I'll definitely grab that one. Maybe grab that Yellowcard. Maybe grab that Night Before Christmas. Like I said, big expensive week for me. I think there's a lot of great stuff coming out, but let me know what you're looking forward to. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.